I remember the exact moment I stopped seeing faces and started seeing targets. I was 17 years old, standing at a checkpoint on the edge of Rafah, holding an AK-47 that felt like it weighed nothing anymore. The metal was warm from the sun, my finger resting just above the trigger the way they taught us. Always ready. Always alert. That morning, the air was thick with dust and heat, the kind that makes your throat dry no matter how much water you drink. I'd been awake for 26 hours straight. My commander said exhaustion makes you sharper, keeps you from thinking too much. He was right about that last part. Then I saw him. Mahmoud. We used to play football together in the street when we were kids. He'd always let me be a striker even though he was better at it. His mother made this bread, this incredible flatbread with solder that she'd give us after school. I can still smell it if I close my eyes. He was walking toward the checkpoint with his head down, carrying a bag of vegetables. Just trying to get home to his family. And I watched my hand tighten on the rifle. I watched myself step forward. I watched as my mind ran through the protocols, the suspicions, the justifications. He looked up. Our eyes met. And I saw nothing. I felt nothing. That was the moment I knew they'd succeeded. Whatever I'd been before, whoever that boy was who laughed over football games and warm bread, he was gone. In his place stood someone who could look at a childhood friend and see only a potential threat. A category. A problem to manage. Mahmoud passed through. I let him go, but not because I remembered him. I let him go because he followed the procedure correctly. Because his papers were in order. Because the calculation of risk and benefit told me to. I didn't even recognize myself anymore. Today, I stand before you as a different man. When I look in the mirror now, I see someone I'm still getting to know. Someone who carries scars on the outside and deeper ones within. Someone who has done things I cannot undo, seen things I cannot unsee, believed things that nearly destroyed every good thing inside me. But I also see something else. Something I never thought possible during those years of darkness. I see someone forgiven. People ask me all the time how this happened. How does a Hamas fighter become a follower of Jesus Christ? How does someone trained to hate learn to love? How does a person who participated in violence become a voice for peace? The answer isn't simple. It isn't clean. And it didn't happen overnight. To understand how God transformed my heart, you need to know the darkness I came from. You need to understand that this darkness didn't start with me, and I wasn't born wanting to hurt people. Nobody is. The path to becoming a person who could stand at a checkpoint and feel nothing was built step by step, stone by stone, lie by lie. And it started long before I ever held a weapon. It started in my childhood, in the place I called home, in the very soil where I learned what it meant to be a man. To be strong. To be righteous. To be willing to die, and to kill, for what I believed was the truth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. Back to where it all began. Back to the streets where I played as a boy, before the checkpoints, before the rifles, before I learned to stop seeing faces. Back to when I still knew how to feel. Gaza in the early 2000s wasn't the place you see on the news. I mean, it was, but it was also home. It was narrow streets where everyone knew everyone. It was the smell of my mother's cooking drifting through the windows at sunset. It was running barefoot over broken concrete, playing with whatever we could find, turning rubble into fortresses for our imaginary battles. We were poor, but we didn't really understand that yet. Everyone was poor. What mattered was that we had each other. My father worked in construction, when there was work. Strong hands, quiet voice. He'd come home covered in dust, and my mother would have water ready for him to wash. They'd speak in low tones about things they didn't want us children to hear. About money. About the borders. About the restrictions that kept tightening like a fist around our lives. I had 2 brothers and a sister. I was the middle son. Old enough to understand that something was wrong with our world, too young to understand what or why. My little brother, Ahmed, was 6 years younger than me. He used to follow me everywhere, copying everything I did. When I kicked a ball, he kicked a ball. When I climbed a wall, he tried to climb it too, usually falling and scraping his knees. I'd clean him up before we went home so Mother wouldn't worry. One day, I'd tell him, things will be better. You'll see. I believed that then. The first time I understood what war actually meant, I was 9 years old. We were playing in the street, and the sound came before we could process it. A whistling, then an explosion 2 blocks away. The ground shook. Windows shattered. Someone started screaming. My father ran out and grabbed us, pulling us inside. His hands were shaking. My mother was crying, holding my sister, counting us over and over. 1, 2, 3, 4. All there. All alive. That night, I heard my father praying in a way I'd never heard before. His voice was breaking. He was asking God why. Why the children? Why the innocent? What did we do to deserve this? I didn't sleep. None of us did. We could hear ambulances all night long. The next day, I went to school, and 3 of my classmates weren't there. They were never there again. At the funeral, I saw men with green headbands standing at attention. They looked strong. Certain. Unafraid. One of them put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't cry, little brother. They are martyrs now. They are in paradise. And one day, we will make the occupiers pay for every drop of innocent blood." I wiped my tears and stood up straighter. Something was planted in me that day. A seed. A question. If God is just, why does He let this happen? And if God wants justice, shouldn't someone do something about it? The years that followed were a constant rhythm of tension and release, violence and quiet, fear and defiance. We learned to live with it the way you learn to live with chronic pain. You adapt. You find ways to keep going. But I was changing. Every explosion. Every funeral. Every night my mother cried herself to sleep thinking we couldn't hear. Every time my father came home with that look in his eyes like he'd failed us somehow, just by being unable to protect us from forces bigger than any one man. I started spending time at the mosque more. Not just for prayers, but afterward. There were older boys there, teenagers who seemed to have answers to all my questions. They'd gather in groups and talk about resistance. About dignity. About how we weren't meant to just survive under occupation, we were meant to fight back. "Your father is a good man," one of them told me when I was 12. His name was Khalil, and he was 19, which seemed impossibly old and wise to me then. But good men who do nothing are part of the problem. The Zionists don't respect peace. They respect strength. He showed me videos on his phone. Fighters training. Operations being planned. Messages from leaders talking about liberation, about justice, about the duty every Muslim man has to defend his land and his people. "You're smart," Khalil said. "You could be something more than your father. You could actually make a difference." I wanted that so badly I could taste it. To matter. To do something. To not feel so helpless every time I heard my mother crying through the walls. By the time I was 14, I was attending their meetings regularly. They called it youth education. Learning about our history, our religion, our rights. They taught us that we were part of a greater struggle, that what happened to us wasn't random or senseless but part of a larger war between good and evil. And they were very clear about which side was which. The lessons were careful at first. Theological. Historical. They'd talk about injustice in the abstract, about the duty to resist oppression. But gradually, session by session, the message sharpened. Resistance wasn't just a right. It was an obligation. Martyrdom wasn't a tragedy. It was an honor. And the enemy? The enemy wasn't interested in peace. They were interested in our erasure. I'll never forget the night I truly understood what they were preparing us for. I was 15. We were meeting in a basement, about 20 of us young men, and a commander came to speak. He wasn't like the youth leaders. He carried himself differently. He had scars on his face and hands, and when he spoke, everyone went completely silent. Some of you, he said, looking around the room slowly, will be called to do great things. Some of you will be asked to sacrifice in ways that will test everything you believe about yourself. But know this, every drop of blood spilled for this cause is a seed. And from that seed, liberation will grow. Then he told us about an operation. He didn't give details, but he told us the outcome. 3 Israeli soldiers died. 2 of our fighters were martyred. They died knowing they struck a blow for every child who has lost a parent, every mother who has buried her son, every family destroyed by occupation. They died as heroes. Everyone around me was nodding, some with tears in their eyes. And I felt it too. That surge of pride, of righteous anger, of purpose. I wanted to be that kind of hero. After the meeting, Khalil pulled me aside. "You're ready," he said. "I've been watching you. You have the heart for this. Next month, we start real training. Physical conditioning. Tactics. Weapons." My hands were sweating. "I'm ready. Your family can't know." "Not yet. When the time comes, they'll understand. But for now, this is between you, me, and Allah." I went home that night feeling like I was walking on air. Like I'd finally found my purpose. Like all the confusion and anger and grief of my childhood was about to be channeled into something meaningful. My little brother Ahmed was still awake when I got home, reading by flashlight under his blanket. "Where were you?" he whispered. "Just out with friends." "Go to sleep. Can I come next time?" I looked at him. Still so young. Still innocent in a way I was already losing. "Not yet," I told him. "When you're older." He nodded and went back to his book, satisfied with that answer. I lay in my bed that night, staring at the ceiling, and felt absolutely certain I was on the right path. I felt chosen. Special. Part of something bigger than myself. I didn't know I was already starting to disappear. The training started small. Early morning runs before school. Push-ups until your arms shook. Learning to move quietly, to observe, to report what you saw. They were testing us. Seeing who was serious. Who could handle discipline. Who could be trusted. I threw myself into it completely. When my muscles screamed, I pushed harder. When I wanted to quit, I reminded myself why I was doing this. For my family. For my people. For justice. Within 6 months, I was in the advanced group. We trained in abandoned buildings, in areas where nobody asked questions. They taught us hand-to-hand combat. How to handle weapons. How to clean and maintain them. How to shoot. The first time I held a rifle, really held one, not just saw one from a distance, something shifted in me. It felt heavy and light at the same time. Like holding power itself. The instructor, a man we called Abu Samir, watched me carefully. "A weapon is neutral," he said. "It's the hand that holds it, and the heart behind that hand that makes it righteous or evil. In their hands, weapons are tools of oppression. In ours, tools of liberation." I repeated that to myself like a prayer. Liberation. Not murder. Liberation. By 16, I was participating in operations. Small ones at first. Acting as a lookout. Delivering messages. Creating diversions. Every time I completed a task successfully, they trusted me with more. "You're good at this," Khalil told me after one operation. "Cool under pressure. Most kids your age freeze up. But you have ice in your veins." I took it as a compliment. Now I understand it was a warning sign. My family noticed I was changing, but they didn't understand how or why. My father thought I was just becoming a man, getting more serious, more responsible. My mother worried I was getting into trouble, but I'd lie and tell her everything was fine. Ahmed still followed me around when I was home, but I had less and less patience for him. His childish games felt irrelevant. Didn't he understand what was happening in the world? Didn't he see that we were at war? "Why are you always angry now?" he asked me once. "I'm not angry. I'm awake. You should wake up too." He looked hurt, and I felt guilty for about 5 seconds before pushing it down. Emotions were weak. The commanders had made that clear. If you want to be effective, you have to be able to set aside your feelings. You have to see the mission, not the individual. When I was 17, they gave me my first real assignment. Guard duty at a checkpoint we'd established in a disputed area. 4-hour shifts, rotating with other fighters. My job was to monitor who came through, verify they had permission to be there, and detain anyone suspicious for questioning. Remember, Abu Samir told me, everyone is a potential informant. Everyone is potentially working with the enemy. Trust no one. Verify everything. The first few days were quiet. People came through, I checked their papers, they moved on. Simple. Routine. But I started to notice something. The way people looked at me. Or more accurately, the way they avoided looking at me. The fear in their eyes. The way mothers would pull their children closer when they approached. I was 17 years old, and I had become something that scared people. And I told myself that was good. Fear meant respect. Fear meant they understood we were serious. The lies we tell ourselves to justify what we become. One afternoon during my shift, an old man came through pushing a cart of fruit. He was slow, struggling with the uneven ground. Without thinking, I almost stepped forward to help him. Then I caught myself. Helped him? What was I thinking? He could have anything hidden in that cart. Weapons. Explosives. Intelligence. Stop, I called out, raising my rifle. Open the cart. His hands shook as he complied. Just fruit. Oranges and pomegranates, some bruised from the journey. Papers. He fumbled for them, dropping them twice before managing to hand them over. I checked them slowly, deliberately, making him wait. Asserting my authority. Everything was in order. I waved him through. As he passed, he mumbled something. What did you say? He looked up at me, and for a moment I saw something in his eyes that I couldn't quite name. Not fear. Something worse. Pity. I said, Allah have mercy on you, son. You're so young. He moved on before I could respond, and I stood there feeling something. Some crack in the certainty I'd built around myself. Some whisper of doubt. Then my commander called, and I pushed it away. Pushed it deep down where it couldn't interfere. That's when Mahmoud walked past. I told you about that moment already. About how I looked at him and felt nothing. But what I didn't tell you was what happened after. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Mahmoud's face. Keep remembering us as kids. Kept wondering when exactly I'd become the kind of person who could look at a friend and see only a security risk. I got up and went outside, and Khalil was there, smoking. Can't sleep? He asked. Just thinking. About what? I wanted to tell him. Wanted to ask if he ever felt it too, this growing emptiness. This sense that we were losing something important even as we gained power and purpose. But I didn't. Because I'd seen what happened to fighters who started questioning. They were removed from operations. They were isolated. They were called weak. Nothing, I said. Just wondering when we'll get to do something bigger. He smiled. Soon, brother. Soon. And that soon came faster than I expected. 2 weeks later, we received intelligence about an Israeli patrol that would be passing through a specific area. Vulnerable. Exposed. An opportunity. We're going to hit them, Abu Samir said at the briefing. Fast and hard. 6 of us. You'll be on the team. My heart was racing. This was real. This was what everything had been building toward. Some of you might not come back, he continued. But if you fall as a martyr. Your name will be remembered. Your family will be honored. And the enemy will know we cannot be broken. I looked around at the other fighters. Some were older, veterans of previous operations. Others were my age, eyes burning with the same zealous certainty I felt. We spent 3 days preparing. Planning routes. Timing. Contingencies. We prayed together, asking Allah to guide our hands and accept our sacrifice if it came to that. The night before the operation, I went home to see my family. I couldn't tell them what was happening, but something in me needed to see them. Just in case. My mother was cooking. The smell of spices and rice filled the small apartment. Ahmed was doing homework at the table, and my father was listening to the radio, his face tired. "You're home early," my mother said, surprised. "Are you hungry?" "Always," I said, and she smiled. We ate together, and for a moment, it felt like it used to. Like we were just a normal family having a normal dinner. Like there wasn't a war outside our door. Like I wasn't planning to participate in an ambush the next day. Ahmed asked me to help him with his math homework after dinner. Simple algebra problems. I sat with him and worked through them, and he grinned every time he got one right. "You're good at teaching," he said. "Maybe you should be a teacher one day." Maybe, I said, though I couldn't imagine a future like that anymore. My future was measured in operations, in missions, in the next fight. Before I left, my mother hugged me tighter than usual. "You're careful out there, yes? Whatever you're doing?" "I'm always careful, Mama." "You're a good boy. My good boy. I pray for you every day." I kissed her forehead and left before she could see my face. The operation was set for dawn. We moved into position while it was still dark, hiding in an abandoned building that overlooked the road. Waiting. I'd never felt so alive and so terrified at the same time. Every sense was heightened. Every sound magnified. My hands wouldn't stop shaking until Abu Samir put his hand on my shoulder. "Breathe," he said. "You've trained for this. When it starts, your training takes over. Trust it." The sun started to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. And then we saw them. 2 vehicles approaching, moving slowly, scanning the area. Abu Samir gave the signal. What happened next, I can't tell you in detail. Not because I don't remember. I remember every second with a clarity that haunts me. But because speaking it aloud feels like giving it power, like making it real all over again. I'll tell you this. He pulled the trigger. Multiple times. I saw the impact of what he did. I saw people fall. And when it was over, when we were retreating back to safety, when the adrenaline started to fade, I realized my hands were shaking again. But this time, they wouldn't stop. We made it back to the safe house. Abu Samir was celebrating, praising Allah, praising our precision and bravery. The others were energized, rehashing every moment, already mythologizing what we'd done. I excused myself and went outside. And I threw up until there was nothing left. That's when I knew something was breaking inside me. But I couldn't admit it. Not to them. Not to myself. Not yet. So I wiped my mouth, stood up straight, and went back inside. "Are you good?" Khalil asked. "Yeah," I lied. "Just an adrenaline crash." He nodded, accepting it, and handed me water. That night, I dreamed of faces. Not targets. Faces. And I started to realize that maybe, just maybe, I'd made a terrible mistake about who I was becoming. But I wasn't ready to face that truth yet. Because facing it would mean admitting that everything I'd believed, everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd done, it would mean admitting it might have all been wrong. And I wasn't strong enough for that. Not yet. It would take something else. Something I never could have predicted. It would take meeting the enemy face to face. Not as a target. As a person. 3 months after that operation, everything changed. We received orders for a more complex mission. There had been reports of an Israeli informant operating in our area, someone feeding intelligence to the IDF about our movements, our safe houses, our plans. The orders were clear. Find him. Extract information. Eliminate the threat. It took us 2 weeks to identify him. A man in his 30s, married, and with 2 children. He owned a small shop. On the surface, he seemed ordinary. Harmless. But our intelligence said he'd been passing information for months, and that information had led to the deaths of 3 of our fighters. The plan was to take him at night, bring him to a location where we could question him properly, get names of his handlers, and find out what else he'd compromised. I was assigned to the extraction team. 4 of us, moving fast and quiet. We hit his house at 2 in the morning. His wife started screaming. His children woke up crying. We zip-tied his hands and put a hood over his head while his family watched, terrified. "Please," his wife kept saying. "Please, he's done nothing. Please." We dragged him out and threw him in the back of a van. The whole thing took less than 3 minutes. They brought him to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Concrete floors. Single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The kind of place where screams don't carry. Abu Samir did most of the interrogation. I was there to assist, to take notes, to be an extra set of hands if needed. They sat the man in a chair, removed the hood, and he blinked against the sudden light. He was shaking, crying, begging, saying he didn't know what we were talking about, that there had been a mistake, that he was just a shopkeeper, that he had a family. "We know what you are," Abu Samir said calmly. "We know you've been working with the Israelis. We know about the information you passed. 3 of our brothers are dead because of you." "No," the man kept saying. "No, no, no. I swear on my children's lives. I swear on Allah. You have the wrong person." The interrogation went on for hours. Abu Samir was patient at first, asking questions, giving the man chances to confess. But as the night wore on and the man kept denying everything, the methods became harsher. I won't describe what I saw, what I participated in. But I'll tell you this. There came a point, maybe 3 or 4 hours in, when I looked at this man, this broken, bleeding, terrified man, and something in me snapped. He was telling the truth. I didn't know how I knew, but I knew. This wasn't a hardened informant protecting his secrets. This was an innocent man who genuinely had no idea why this was happening to him. I pulled Abu Samir aside. "I think we have the wrong guy." He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "He's lying. They always deny it at first." "No," I said. "I've been watching him. This isn't denial. This is confusing. Real confusion. I think our intelligence was wrong." "Our intelligence is never wrong," Abu Samir said. "Get back in there." But I couldn't. I stood there, and for the first time since I joined, I refused an order. "I can't do this. Not to an innocent man." The temperature in the room dropped. Abu Samir stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "You think you know better than the commanders? You think your gut feeling is more reliable than weeks of surveillance and verified intelligence?" "I don't know," I said. "But I know what I'm seeing. And what I'm seeing is a man who's telling the truth." Abu Samir stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Wait outside. We'll finish this without you." I walked out into the cool night air, and I could still hear the man's voice. Still hear him begging. Still hear him swearing his innocence. And then, after about 20 more minutes, I heard a single gunshot. Then silence. Khalil came out a few minutes later. "It's done," he said. "You can go home." "Was he the informant?" I asked. Khalil shrugged. "Does it matter?" "The commanders said he was." That's enough. That's enough. Those 2 words echoed in my head all the way home. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. I kept seeing that man's face. I kept hearing his voice. Kept replaying every moment, looking for signs that he'd been lying, that we'd been right to do what we did. But I couldn't find any. All I could see was a frightened, innocent man who died because someone made a mistake and no one was willing to admit it. A week later, I heard through the network that they'd found the actual informant. Different person entirely. The intelligence had been good, but someone had mixed up the addresses. A clerical error. That's all it took. One clerical error, and an innocent man was dead. His wife was a widow. His children had no father. And I had been part of it. That's when the nightmares really started. Not just about that man, but about everything. Every operation. Every checkpoint confrontation. Every time I'd point a weapon at someone, I started questioning all of it. How many of those people had been real threats? How many had just been in the wrong place at the wrong time? How many Mahmouds had I processed without feeling anything, without recognizing their humanity? I tried to talk to Khalil about it. I chose my words carefully, didn't directly criticize the organization, just said I was struggling with some things. He listened, then put his hand on my shoulder. "This is normal," he said. "After first real kill, everyone goes through this. It means you have a conscience, which is good. But you can't let it paralyze you. What we do is necessary. Sometimes innocent people get caught in the crossfire. It's tragic, but it's the price of resistance. But what if we're becoming the very thing we're fighting against?" I asked. "What if we're creating more injustice in the name of fighting injustice?" He pulled his hand away. "Be very careful what you're saying, brother. Questions like that, they're dangerous. They make you weak. They make you unreliable." "I'm not unreliable," I said quickly. "I'm just thinking." "Then stop thinking so much," he said. "Thinking is what the enemy wants. Doubt is their weapon. Trust the commanders. Trust the cause. Trust Allah." He walked away, and I stood there feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. Over the next few weeks, I started pulling back. Not obviously, I couldn't do that without raising suspicion. But I volunteered for fewer operations. I started finding excuses to be unavailable. I spent more time at home with my family. Ahmed noticed. "You're around more," he said one evening. "I like it. It's like having my brother back." That almost broke me. Because he was right. For the first time in years, I was starting to feel like myself again. The real me, not the person I'd been trained to become. But I didn't know what to do with these feelings. Leaving wasn't an option. People who tried to leave Hamas didn't just walk away. They were considered traitors. Threats. Loose ends. I felt trapped between two impossible choices. Stay and continue to lose pieces of my soul with every operation, or leave and put my entire family at risk. Then, 2 months after the warehouse incident, I was assigned to a hostage situation that would change everything. Israeli forces had captured 3 of our fighters during a raid. In retaliation, we'd taken 2 Israeli civilians who'd been traveling near the border. A man and a woman, both in their 20s. The plan was to use them as leverage, negotiate a prisoner exchange. I was assigned to guard duty. 4-hour shifts watching the hostages, making sure they didn't try anything, reporting any concerns to the commanders. They were being held in a basement room, hands bound but not uncomfortable. We weren't cruel for the sake of being cruel. This was business. Political leverage. At least, that's what I told myself. The first time I went down to start my shift, the other guard briefed me quickly. "The man doesn't talk much. The woman asks a lot of questions. Don't engage. Don't give them any information. Just watch." He left, and I sat down on a chair across from them, my rifle across my lap. They were sitting on a mat in the corner, backs against the wall. The woman had been crying. Her eyes were red and puffy. The man had his arm around her, trying to comfort her. For the first hour, nobody said anything. I watched them. They watched me. The silence was thick and uncomfortable. Then the woman spoke. Her voice was hoarse. "Can I have some water, please?" I hesitated. We'd been told not to engage. But it was just water. I got up, filled a cup from a jug in the corner, and brought it to her. Her hands were tied, so I had to hold it while she drank. "Thank you," she said quietly. I nodded and went back to my chair. Another hour passed. Then she spoke again. "What's your name?" "I shouldn't tell you that." "Okay. I'm Rachel. This is Liam. We're teachers. We were visiting a school near the border when your people took us." I didn't respond. Teachers. Of course they were teachers. Why couldn't they have been soldiers? Why couldn't they have been people I could easily categorize as the enemy? We weren't doing anything wrong, she continued. We were just trying to help kids. Kids on both sides. Did you know that? The school we were visiting, it's a peace education program. Palestinian and Israeli children learning together. I wanted her to stop talking. Every word was making it harder to maintain the distance I needed. You look young, she said. How old are you? Old enough, I said. You look like some of my students, she said. Same age. Same uncertain eyes. Like you're still figuring out who you want to be. I am not your student, I snapped. And you need to stop talking. She nodded and went quiet. But the damage was done. She'd planted something in my mind. The idea that I was still becoming, still choosing, still had agency in who I would ultimately be. The next few shifts were torture. I tried to maintain professional distance, to see them as assets, as leverage, as anything but what they clearly were. Two innocent people caught up in something they had nothing to do with. But Rachel kept talking to me. Not in an aggressive way, not trying to manipulate or escape. Just talking. About her life. About her students. About why she believed in education and peace and the possibility of a different future. One night she asked me, "Do you have siblings?" I shouldn't have answered. But I did. A brother and a sister. Are they younger? Older? My brother's younger. 6 years. What's his name? Ahmed. That's a beautiful name. Does he look up to you? I didn't answer that. Because the answer was yes, and I couldn't bear to think about what Ahmed would think if he knew what I was becoming. I think he does, Rachel said softly. I think you're probably his hero. Little brothers always look up to big brothers. They copy everything you do. They want to be just like you. She paused. What kind of man do you want him to become? That question hit me like a physical blow. What kind of man did I want Ahmed to become? Did I want him to end up like me? Standing guard over hostages, participating in violence, slowly losing his humanity piece by piece? The answer was obvious. No. I wanted him to be better than me. I wanted him to have a different life. A better life. Then be that man, Rachel said. Be the man you want your brother to become. It's not too late. It's never too late. I stood up abruptly. Stop talking. Just stop. She nodded and fell silent, but her words kept echoing in my head for the rest of my shift and long after. Over the next week, my internal crisis intensified. Every conversation with Rachel and Liam chipped away at the walls I'd built. They told me about their lives, their hopes, their fears. They weren't monsters. They weren't occupiers in any meaningful sense. They were just people. Good people, trying to make the world a little better. And I was holding them prisoner. Liam told me about his students, about a Palestinian boy in his class who wanted to be an engineer. Rachel told me about a program she was developing to help children process trauma through art. They talked about their families, their friends, their dreams for the future. They talked about the future like it was something real, something possible, something worth hoping for. And I realized I'd stopped thinking about the future years ago. My whole life had become about the next mission, the next operation, the next act of resistance. I'd stopped dreaming. I'd stopped hoping. I'd stopped being fully human. One night during my shift, I asked them, "Do you hate us?" Rachel looked at me for a long moment. "I don't hate you," she said. "I'm afraid of you. I'm angry that you took us. I desperately want to go home. But hate? No. Hate is what created this whole situation. More hate isn't going to solve anything. Even after what we've done to you. Even now? Even now," she said. "Because I choose to believe that you're more than this moment. I choose to believe that the young man sitting in front of me is struggling with this, questioning this, looking for a way out. Am I wrong?" I couldn't answer her. Because she wasn't wrong. That night, after my shift ended, I went outside and looked up at the stars. The same stars that shone over Rachel and Liam's homes, over my home, over all of us. One sky. One humanity. When did I forget that? I started praying, but not the prayers I'd been taught. Not the prayers about victory and resistance and righteous struggle. I prayed simply. Honestly. God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's right anymore. I thought I did, but I was wrong. I'm lost. If you're real, if you're there, if you care about any of this, please show me. Show me the truth. Show me the way out of this darkness. I didn't expect an answer. I didn't hear a voice from heaven or see a vision. But something shifted in me that night. A decision started forming, still vague, still terrifying, but undeniable. I couldn't do this anymore. The next day, I did something that could have gotten me killed. During my shift, I loosened Rachel and Liam's restraints slightly. Not enough that they could escape, but enough that their hands wouldn't go numb. It was a small act of defiance against what we were doing, but it felt enormous. Rachel noticed. Thank you, she whispered. I nodded but said nothing. I couldn't. Because acknowledging what I'd done would make it real, would make me complicit in my own doubts. 2 days later, the commanders announced that negotiations had broken down. The Israelis weren't willing to trade the prisoners we wanted for the hostages. A decision needed to be made about what to do next. I knew what that meant. I'd seen it before. Hostages who lost their value didn't stay hostages for long. I pulled Khalil aside. What's going to happen to them? He looked at me carefully. Why do you care? I just need to know. You know, he said. Same thing that always happens when negotiations fail. They're teachers, Khalil? They weren't soldiers. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were helping children. That's what they told you. He shook his head. And you believed them? This is exactly what I was worried about. You've gotten soft. You've let them manipulate you. They didn't manipulate me. I've just been paying attention. I've been watching them. Talking to them. They're not what we've been told the enemy is. The enemy is whoever opposes us, Khalil said. It's that simple. You need to remember which side you're on. But that was exactly the problem. I was starting to question whether there were sides at all, or if we'd all just trapped ourselves in a cycle of violence that nobody knew how to escape. That night, I made the most dangerous decision of my life. I was going to help them escape. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have resources or support, or any idea how I was going to pull it off. But I knew I couldn't stand by and watch 2 innocent people die because of a political game they had nothing to do with. During my next shift, I told them. Your voice barely above a whisper. Tomorrow night. I'm going to get you out. Liam looked at me like I was insane. Why would you do that? This is a trap, isn't it? It's not a trap. I just can't do this anymore. I can't be part of this. You'll be killed if they find out, Rachel said. Your family will be in danger. I know. But if I don't do this, I'm already dead. The person I'm becoming, the things I've done, if I keep going down this path, there won't be anything left of me worth saving. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. What's your name? Your real name? I hesitated, then told her. It felt like handing over a piece of myself, making myself vulnerable in a way I hadn't been in years. Thank you, she said. Whatever happens, thank you for choosing this. For choosing to be human. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I went through the motions of my regular duties, trying to act normal, trying not to let anyone see the terror and determination warring inside me. I thought about my family constantly. About what this would mean for them. About how they'd find out what I'd done. About whether they'd understand or hate me for it. I thought about Ahmed. About whether he'd ever know that I'd tried, at the end, to be the kind of man worth looking up to. The plan was simple because it had to be. During my shift, I would create a distraction, a small fire in another part of the building. In the confusion, I'd get Rachel and Liam out through a side exit and point them toward the border. That was it. That was all I had. It was a terrible plan. The chances of it working were minimal. But it was all I could think of. When the time came, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely light the match. I'd soaked some rags in kerosene and placed them in a storage room at the far end of the building. The smoke would draw everyone away from the basement. I lit the fire, waited until I heard shouts and running footsteps, then ran down to the basement. Rachel and Liam were ready, watching the door with terrified hope in their eyes. Now, I said. Move. I led them through the corridors, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Every shadow looked like a guard. Every sound made me flinch. But we made it to the side exit, and I pushed open the door. Go east, I told them. Follow that road for 2 miles, then head north. There's an area where the fence is damaged. You can get through. Just keep moving and don't look back. Come with us, Rachel said. You can't stay here after this. I have to. My family is here. If I run, they'll pay the price. At least this way, I can try to protect them. Claim you overpowered me somehow. Liam grabbed my hand. We'll never forget this. What you did, who you chose to be, we'll tell everyone. Your story won't end here. Go, I said. Please. Before someone sees. They ran into the darkness, and I watched until I couldn't see them anymore. Then I took a deep breath, hit myself hard in the face to make it look like a struggle, and started shouting for help. The next few hours were chaotic. Questions. Accusations. Abu Samir's face when he realized what had happened. The rage in his eyes when he interrogated me about how 2 hostages could have overpowered an armed guard. I stuck to my story. They'd attacked me when I brought them food. There were 2 of them, 1 of me. They'd gotten my weapon and knocked me down. By the time I recovered, they were gone. It was a weak story. Full of holes. But in the confusion of the fire and the escape, there wasn't clear evidence to contradict it. Khalil pulled me aside later that night. His face was cold. I know what you did, he said quietly. I don't know how you did it, but I know. You let them go. I didn't respond. Just stared at him. I haven't told anyone because we grew up together. Because you're like a brother to me. But you need to leave. Tonight. Take your family and disappear. Because if you're still here tomorrow, I won't be able to protect you. Where would I go? I asked. How would I protect my family if I run? I don't know, he said. But staying is death. For you and probably for them too once they figure out the truth. He walked away, and I stood there facing the impossible choice. Run and abandon everything I knew, everyone I loved. Or stay and face execution for treason. I went home. It was 3 a.m. Everyone was asleep. I sat in the small living room and looked at my family. My father was sleeping in his chair, too tired to make it to bed. My mother is on the couch, always keeping watch even in sleep. Ahmed's door cracked open, his soft breathing audible. I couldn't take them with me. Couldn't uproot their entire lives, couldn't put them in danger, couldn't ask them to become fugitives because of my choices. But I couldn't stay there. So I did the only thing I could think of. I wrote a letter. I told them I loved them. I told them I was sorry. I told them I'd done something that made staying impossible, but I couldn't explain what because it would only put them in more danger. I begged them not to look for me. I promised I would find a way to contact them when it was safe. I left the letter on the kitchen table, kissed my sleeping mother's forehead, and walked out of the house for the last time. I had no plan, no resources, nowhere to go. I just walked. East toward the border, following the same path I'd sent Rachel and Liam down hours earlier. As the sun started to rise, I found myself in an area I didn't recognize. Abandoned buildings. Empty streets. The kind of place people avoided. And I broke down. I just sat down in the rubble and cried like I hadn't cried since I was a child. For everything I'd lost. For everything I'd done. For the boy I used to be and the man I'd become. For my family. For the future I'd just destroyed. I cried until I had nothing left. Then I lay down in the dust and closed my eyes, not caring if I ever woke up. But I did wake up. And when I did, someone was standing over me. An older man, Palestinian by his dress, with kind eyes and weathered hands. "You're in trouble," he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded, too exhausted to lie. "Come," he said. "You can't stay here. It's not safe." I followed him because I had no other choice, no other options, no other hope. He led me to a small house on the edge of the city, brought me inside, and gave me water. "What's your name?" he asked. I told him. "Who are you running from?" "Everyone," I said. "Hamas. The Israelis. Myself." He nodded like he understood. "I'm Father Bashi," he said. "I run a small church here. We help people who are lost. People who are running. People who need a new beginning." "I'm Muslim," I said. "I know. That doesn't matter to me. What matters is that you're in need, and God has placed you in my path for a reason." "God," I said bitterly. "Which God? The one who let my friends die as children? The one who let me become a monster? The one who seems to have abandoned this entire region to endless violence? The one who led you to let those hostages go," Father Bashi said quietly. "The one who gave you a conscience that wouldn't let you participate in their murder. The one who brought you here, to this house, at this moment." "I don't believe in that God anymore," I said. "That's all right," he said. "He still believes in you." I stayed with Father Bashi for 3 weeks. He gave me food, shelter, and safety. He didn't preach at me or try to convert me. He just showed me kindness without agenda, without condition, without expectation of anything in return. But I noticed things. The way he prayed. The peace on his face when he read his Bible. The way he spoke about this Jesus as if he was a real person he knew personally, not just a historical figure or a prophet. One evening I asked him, "Why do you believe? How can you believe in a good God when there's so much suffering in the world?" "Because I don't believe in a distant God who watches suffering from far away," he said. "I believe in a God who entered into the suffering. Who became human, who experienced injustice and violence and hatred, who was tortured and killed by religious and political powers working together. A God who knows what it means to suffer because he chose to suffer with us." "That's just a story," I said. "Maybe," he said. "But it's a story that has the power to transform people. To turn hate into love. To turn violence into peace. To take someone who's done terrible things and show them they can be forgiven, redeemed, made new. I've seen it happen. Many times. I wanted to believe him. But the weight of what I'd done, the things I'd participated in, the man I'd become, it felt too heavy for any story to lift. One night I couldn't sleep. The nightmares were worse than ever. I got up and found Father Bashi praying in the small chapel attached to his house. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "I keep seeing their faces. Everyone I've hurt. Everything I've done. It won't stop." "Come, sit with me," he said. I sat down, and he opened his Bible. "Let me read you something," he said. "It's about a man named Saul. He was a religious zealot who persecuted and killed followers of Jesus. He thought he was serving God. He thought he was doing the right thing. But he was wrong. And one day, Jesus appeared to him and asked, 'Why are you persecuting me?' He read me the story of how Saul became Paul, how the man who had killed believers became the greatest missionary in history. How he was transformed completely, given a new name, a new purpose, a new life. If God could forgive him, Father Bashi said, if God could use him after everything he'd done, then maybe there's hope for all of us. Even you. Even me. But I'm not like him, I said. I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't deserve a second chance. None of us do, Father Bashi said. That's the whole point. Grace isn't something you earn. It's something you receive. The question isn't whether you deserve it. The question is whether you'll accept it. I don't know how, I said, and my voice broke. Start with honesty, he said. Tell God the truth. Tell Him you're broken. Tell Him you're lost. Tell Him you need help. That's all it takes. Just honest admission that you can't save yourself. That night, alone in the small room Father Bashi had given me, I prayed for the first time in months. I really prayed. Not the rote prayers I'd memorized as a child or the revolutionary prayers I'd learned as a fighter. Just honest, desperate words from a broken heart. God, I don't even know if you're listening. I don't know if you care. I don't know if someone like me can even talk to you after everything I've done. But I'm lost. I'm so lost. I've hurt people. I've killed people. I've become everything I hate. And I don't know how to live with that. I don't know how to be human again. I paused, tears streaming down my face. Father Bashi says you can forgive anything. That you can make people new. I don't believe that's possible for me. But if it is, if there's even a chance, I need it. I need you. Because I have nothing left. I am nothing without help. Please. If you're real, show me. Help me. Save me. I didn't hear anything. Didn't feel anything dramatic. But I slept that night without nightmares for the first time in months. The next morning, Father Bashi and I talked for hours. He told me about Jesus, not as a distant prophet or historical figure, but as God made flesh. He told me about how Jesus came not for the righteous but for sinners, not for the healthy but for the sick, not for the put together but for the broken. He who is forgiven much, loves much, Father Bashi said. You carry so much guilt, so much pain. Imagine what it would mean to be free of it. To know, truly know, that you're forgiven. That you're loved despite everything. That your past doesn't define your future. Over the next few weeks, I read the Bible for the first time. The Gospels. The story of Jesus. And something strange happened. I recognized him. Not his face, but his character. The way he challenged religious and political power. The way he stood with the oppressed. The way he confronted injustice. The way he loved people everyone else had written off. But more than that, I recognized his offer. Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. I was so weary. So heavy laden. So desperate for rest. One morning, about 2 months after arriving at Father Bashi's house, I woke up and I knew. I knew what I needed to do. What I wanted to do. I found Father Bashi in the chapel. I want to follow Jesus, I said. I want this forgiveness you've been talking about. I want this new life. I don't fully understand it all, but I know I need it. I know I need him. Father Bashi's eyes filled with tears. Are you sure? This isn't a small decision. It will change everything. Your family, your community, everyone you know will see this as betrayal. I know, I said. But I've already lost all of that. And I can't keep living the way I've been living. I can't keep being who I've been. I need to be made new, or I'd rather not be at all. Then let's pray, he said. We knelt together, and I prayed the simplest, most honest prayer of my life. Jesus, I believe you're real. I believe you died for my sins, even the terrible ones, even the ones I can barely admit to myself. I believe you rose again. I believe you can save me. I give you my life, all of it, the broken pieces and the bloody history and the uncertain future. Make me new. Make me yours. When I opened my eyes, the room looked the same. I felt the same. But something deep inside had shifted. A weight I'd been carrying for years felt lighter. Not gone, but lighter. Over the next months, Father Bashi taught me what it meant to follow Jesus. It wasn't easy. The guilt didn't disappear overnight. The nightmares didn't stop immediately. The fear that someone would find me, that my family would be hurt because of my choices, that I'd never see them again, all of that remained. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had a community. Other believers who'd walked similar paths, who understood what it meant to carry a painful past into a hopeful future. I learned about forgiveness, real forgiveness. Not forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't matter, but choosing to release the debt, to stop letting the past control the present. I learned about repentance. Not just feeling sorry, but actively turning away from the old life and toward the new one. Making different choices. Becoming a different person. I learned about grace. The unearned, undeserved, unconditional love of God that pursued me even when I was His enemy, even when I was at my worst, even when I'd given up on myself. One day, Father Bashi asked me, "What do you want to do with the rest of your life?" "I don't know," I said. "I've only known one thing for so long. I don't know what else I'm capable of." "God wastes nothing," he said. "Everything you've experienced, even the terrible things, He can use for good. Your story, your testimony, it has power. You've seen both sides. You understand the hate. But you've also experienced a love that's stronger than hate. People need to hear that." "But I'm a criminal," I said. "A terrorist. If I tell my story publicly, I'll be hunted by everyone. Hamas will want me dead for betrayal. Israel will want me arrested for what I've done. I can't protect anyone if I'm public." "Then we'll be wise about it," Father Bashi said. "We'll use different channels. We'll be careful. But we can't keep this light hidden. Too many people are trapped in the same darkness you escaped. They need to know there's a way out." So I started telling my story. Carefully at first. In small groups. Other ex-fighters who were questioning. Young men who were being recruited. People who felt trapped in cycles of violence and hatred. And something amazing happened. People listened. People changed. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to matter. Enough to show me that maybe my life could still have purpose. Maybe the terrible things I'd done didn't have to be the end of my story. I started working with Father Bashi's organization. We created safe spaces for people who wanted to leave extremist groups. We helped them relocate, rebuild their lives, find new identities. It was dangerous work. Several times we were threatened. Once someone tried to kill me. But we kept going. Because we'd all experienced the same thing. We'd all been lost in darkness and found light. We'd all been trapped in hate and found love. We'd all been dead in our sins and found life in Christ. One day, about 3 years after I'd left Gaza, I received a message. It had been passed through multiple channels, encrypted and cautious. But I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Ahmed. "Brother, I don't know if you'll ever get this. I don't know where you are or if you're even alive. But I had to try. I need you to know that I understand." Not at first. At first, I was angry. I felt abandoned. But as I got older, I started to see things. I started to question things. I started to realize that maybe you left because you saw something I couldn't see yet. I'm 16 now. The same age you were when you started down that path. And they're recruiting me. They say I should follow in your footsteps, be brave like you were. But I remember what you were like before you left. The nightmares. The distance. The way you looked at all of us like you were already gone. I don't want that life, brother. But I don't know how to escape it. They're watching our family because of what you did. If I refuse, if I try to leave, they'll punish all of us. I don't know what to do. But I wanted you to know that whatever you're doing now, wherever you are, I don't hate you. I miss you. And I wish I could talk to you. I wish you could tell me how you found the courage to walk away. Your brother Ahmed. I cried when I read it. Then I prayed. And then I started working with Father Bashi on a plan. It took 6 months. 6 months of careful preparation, of building connections, of creating a network that could extract one teenager from Gaza without getting everyone killed. But we did it. We got Ahmed out. Through Jordan, through a series of safe houses, through the help of dozens of people who believed in giving second chances, we brought my little brother to safety. When I saw him for the first time in 3 years, we both just stood there crying. Then he hugged me and whispered, "Teach me. Teach me how to be free." And I did. I told him everything. About my time with Hamas. About the hostages. About Father Bashi. About Jesus. About forgiveness and redemption and the possibility of new beginnings. Ahmed became a believer 6 months later. And now he works with me. 2 brothers who could have been enemies, who could have continued the cycle of violence, instead working together to help others escape the same darkness we escaped. My parents still don't understand. They're still in Gaza. We communicate rarely, always carefully. My father has disowned me. My mother prays for me but can't accept my faith. It's painful. Some days, it's almost unbearable. But I know I made the right choice. Not because it was easy. Not because it didn't cost me everything. But because I'm finally becoming the man I was created to be, not the man I was trained to become. I stand before you today not as someone who has it all figured out. I still struggle. I still have nightmares. I still carry guilt for things I can never undo. But I'm forgiven. I'm loved. I'm free. And if God can do that for me, if He can take someone like me, someone who participated in violence and hatred, someone who hurt innocent people, someone who lost himself completely in darkness, if He can reach into that darkness and pull me out and make me new, then He can do it for anyone. There is no one beyond His reach. No sin too great. No past too dark. No person too far gone. I'm living proof of that. You might be watching this and thinking about your own life. Maybe you're not a fighter. Maybe you've never held a weapon. But maybe you're trapped in your own kind of darkness. Your own hate. Your own bitterness. Your own unforgiveness. Your own cycle of pain. You might think it's impossible to change. That you're too far gone. That you've done too much or hurt too many people. That God could never love someone like you. I thought the same thing. I was wrong. Jesus said, I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. He came for people like me. Like you? Like all of us who know we're broken and need to be made whole. The question isn't whether you're good enough. You're not. Neither am I. None of us are. The question is whether you're willing to admit it. Whether you're willing to come to Him honestly and say, I need help. I can't save myself. I need you. That's all it takes. Honest admission. Humble surrender. Opening your hands and letting go of the burden you've been carrying, the person you've been trying to be, the life you've been trying to control. And then letting Him make you new. It won't be easy. Following Jesus never is. You might lose people you love. You might face persecution. You might be misunderstood or rejected. The cost is real. But so is freedom. So is the peace. So is the joy of knowing you're forgiven, you're loved, you're His. I traded everything I thought mattered for something I didn't even know existed. And it was the best trade I ever made. If my story has touched you in any way, if you're feeling that pull towards something more, towards someone who loves you despite everything, don't ignore it. That's the Holy Spirit calling you home. That's God reaching out to you the same way He reached out to me. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to clean yourself up first. Come as you are. Broken. Messy. Uncertain. He'll meet you there. And He'll change your life. Just like He changed mine. From hostage to hope. From hatred to love. From death to life. That's what Jesus does. That's who He is. That's the gospel, the good news that has the power to transform anyone who believes it. Even an ex-Hamas fighter. Especially an ex-Hamas fighter. Because if there's hope for me, there's hope for everyone. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for giving me the space to share what God has done in my life. I pray that somehow, in some way, my testimony might plant seeds in your heart. Seeds of hope. Seeds of possibility. Seeds of faith. May God bless you. May He reveal Himself to you. May He show you the same mercy and grace He showed me. And may you discover, like I did, that it's never too late to start again. If this testimony has impacted you, if it's made you think, if it's stirred something in your heart, I want to ask you to do something. Subscribe to this channel so you can hear more stories like mine. Stories of redemption. Stories of transformation. Stories of hope. Hit the like button to help this message reach more people who need to hear it. Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me your story. Tell me how God is working in your life. And please share this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's lost. Someone who's struggling. Someone who thinks they're beyond hope. Because they're not. None of us are. Thank you, and God bless you.